Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, all praise and thanks belong to God, the Lord of the worlds. May peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad, his family, his companions, and all of God's prophets and messengers. Brothers, sisters, friends, guests, assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you. This is Edward Ahmed Mitchell welcoming you to today's episode of CAIR on Air. We thank you for joining us. A special thank you to our listeners on American Muslim 360. We hope all of you are doing well and staying safe by the grace of God. Today, we're going to be discussing an important topic and a timely topic, Black History Month. As you all know, people around the country, especially educational institutions, workplaces, are marking, celebrating Black History Month in different ways. Here at CAIR, one of the things that we're doing is allowing each of our staff members nationwide to share a quote about what Black history, in particular Black civil rights history, means to them and how it inspires their work. And then we're sharing that publicly in the hope of inspiring others to follow in this path of civil rights work. In addition, we would like to, during this month, bring on some guests to discuss what we as a community, both a Muslim community and as a broader country, should be taking out of this month. I think a lot of people sometimes just let the month pass them by. They don't put a lot of thought into it. It's just kind of a rote thing. But we really want to stop and really think about what benefit can we get out of this month? What can we learn from this month? Especially people who may not usually give a lot of thought to this month. So we want to discuss that today with our dear friend, Imam Johari Abdul-Malik. Let's bring him on now, and I'll introduce him as he comes on. Many of you know Imam Abdul-Malik. He has served as the Director of Outreach at Dar al-Hijra Islamic Center. He was the first Muslim chaplain at Howard University, and he's the former head of the National Association of Muslim Chaplains in Higher Education. The Imam has also served as the chair of government relations for MANA, the Muslim Alliance in North America, and he was the founding president of the Muslim Advocacy Commission of Washington, D.C. He continues to serve on the board of the Interfaith Conference, and I am very excited to say his most recent role, he was recently elected to the National Board of Directors of CAIR. So he was always part of the CAIR family, mashallah, but now it is very much official. Congratulations, Imam, again on your election, and welcome, and assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Peace and blessings to everybody.
Thank you so much, Imam. Good to see you. Good to see you. So, Imam, thank you for joining us to discuss this topic. So, first question, let's talk about Muslims in America and what we should be getting out of Black History Month. What should we be thinking about? What should we be reflecting on during this month, Black History Month?
First, I want to thank you for inviting me. And for CAIR to take the leadership to open this discussion in the month of Black History. It happens to be the shortest month of the year, beginning with the establishment of Negro History Week by Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Carter G. Woodson put this week forward beginning, I believe, 1926, thinking about people just coming out of the condition of slavery and saying that it's important that people have an understanding of their history and their contributions to their society. So since that time, and by the way, this was something that was actually celebrated before Dr. Woodson established Negro History Week, because it was celebrated in the month of February, really thinking about emancipation as a function of the leadership of Abraham Lincoln. And so since Lincoln's birthday was in this month, it was a celebration of the whole idea of emancipation, which really for many of us is a fundamental idea about what America is. That America is a place that is supposed to be a place where people have freedom and democracy and the freedom of speech and movement and the freedom to practice our religion, to petition our government for grievances. And so the celebration of Negro History Week became Black History Month, really to remind all of us about the history, the full history of America. I think, unfortunately, for many people, as you said, I mean, that many people see it, okay, it's, maybe it's like Thanksgiving or, whatever, Columbus Day. But really, it is an important element when we look at the idea that for many of us, if you are from the heritage of enslaved Africans, we were written out of American history. There might be a footnote here or there about the contribution of Crispus Attucks, or maybe the great writing of Phyllis Wheatley. But maybe you don't know that Phyllis Wheatley was from Senegal and was a Muslim before she was enslaved and brought to America around the age of 6. So she had a wherewithal about her culture and her history and literacy, and she brought that with her to America. And so for us, Black History Month is just a way of righting the ship, of telling the full story about the American family. And part of that family is a Muslim family that, as Ivan Van Sertima writes, we came before Columbus. And so it begins to shape how do we think about America and about Blacks in America, to think that Africans were here before slavery, that we were here and came to the Western Hemisphere. The brother of Mansa Musa came to America. And so there are deep roots between Black Americans, Africans, the native peoples, and then the coming of Europeans and the system of enslavement. So Black History Month gives us a chance to have a full picture of what America, a fuller picture of what America should really be all about.
Now, Imam, to that point, let me ask you this. So during Black History Month, I think a lot of schools, a lot of companies, they will take time to remember, all the people that we should remember. Absolutely. Dr. King, Rosa, the Frederick Douglass, the names that we all know about and we should remember. But who are some of the other names or individuals or events that we should be remembering from Black history, and dating back as far as you just mentioned or more recently? Who do you think we could all benefit from thinking a little bit more about during Black History Month? Could be in the broader Black community, the Black Muslim community. Who do you think we might be missing out on regularly when we think about Black History Month?
Well, I don't want to go into a phase where I have to pick. This is my favorite person in history.
Of course.
But what I do like us to think about, if I quite often, and I'm going to just be frank, quite often, even in this work, as we look at Black history, it's been a while since we began to think about women in that history. And so if I had to, people are now dramatizing the lives of Harriet Tubman as a freedom fighter, as an abolitionist. So there are many great narratives about great Blacks and individuals who fought for freedom in this country. So I don't really know that. I can tell you this, and this might be problematic for you, Ahmed. People talk about Nat Turner, right? And they talk about Harriet Tubman. I can get with Harriet Tubman and her work around abolition, but as a Muslim, I have issues about Nat Turner, because Nat Turner's their revolts, and I understand the idea of slave revolts, but there also has to be justice. And I think there were some things in the narrative of Nat Turner that we need to have a critical look at the history and say, Nat Turner did some things I don't agree with. And so I think there needs to be a critical look at Black history while we hold up many of the great leaders of our ancient past and those in the contemporary sense. I'm going to say this now. I think that there is a new awakening in the Black Lives Matters movement, not necessarily the organization, which is awakening the whole idea of what what blacks have contributed to the making of America. So I don't know that I have a.
All right, I won't make you pick them, but I
don't have a fake. Somebody be like, oh yeah, that's like, oh, no.
Yeah. No. Point taken.
The Prophet alayhi salam is funny. Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. They asked who was the greatest prophet, and you would think if you ask Muslims who the greatest prophet, they would say Muhammad alayhi salam, right? Prophet Muhammad, he said he's Jesus' greatest prophet, right? So, I have to be, if I'm following the tradition, I have to be a little deprecating that what we really need to do is take a deeper dive in this month and to uncover people who have made contributions that are significant in the making of America. That Black history is not some other kind of history, just like Black Lives Matters has to raise the issue of the contribution and the value of Blackness because it's so undervalued. But really, if one were to be honest, there should come a day in America where the American story is told, maybe like a Howard Zinn type history book. It tells the story of everybody who contributed to making America what it is. The native peoples who sacrificed their lives, their land, and their labor. Black Americans, Asians, others. But unfortunately, where we are now, we've had to compartmentalize. And so we're not telling the whole story. One day this story will be part of a collective narrative that we can all be proud of.
Inshallah. Imam, one of the things that I take away, a lesson from what you just mentioned about Black history is the way different people respond to injustice. So you mentioned Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner. And I think about them, and then I think about people around the world who suffer injustice, right? And you think about all the examples in Black history of African Americans in particular suffering incredible injustice and responding with something better. And Allah says in the Quran, respond to evil with good. That there's a blessing in that.
I would make short shrift to that.
Yeah.
That to respond to evil with something better.
Right.
So it is not an eye for an eye.
Yeah.
And so we have a great history of forbearance.
Yeah.
That there must be something incredible about people who have gone through the unfortunate condition of enslavement, that after 400 years of slavery, you don't find Black people lashing out and just, see somebody who's a descendant of slave masters and just want to hit them.
Yeah.
There's something transformative in these people, a desire for us to seek justice without harm.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is, but it's a testament to the human spirit.
Alhamdulillah. No, it's a blessing. If you think from Frederick Douglass to Harriet to Malcolm to Martin, alhamdulillah, it's a blessing. And then on the flip side, though, you also can see that even if it's not most people who react, when you treat some people with injustice, inevitably someone will react. If you treat some people monstrously, they may behave monstrously in response. And I think you were kind of alluding to that when we saw what Mr. Turner did and breaking free and but also committing some acts of violence that were horrific, but also probably represented what was done to him and other African Americans. It's a sad, horrific cycle of violence. So Imam, let's dive in further. So one of the things that I find humorous when people talk about Islam in America is we talk about Islam as if it's a recent introduction to America. You have Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, and then they converted, and people start the history oftentimes from there. But Islam has a much longer history in this country. The most prominent that people do know about is the number of slaves who were Muslim before their religion was taken away from them. Take me back in history, Imam. Take me back and educate me, please.
No, before we go there, right?
Please.
I want to ask people to redact from their vocabulary the term slave. These are people who were enslaved.
Mashallah.
They were prisoners of war. They were captives. Slave is an object. And so in our discourse, we want to humanize people, and that puts the institution of slavery at a disadvantage when we say these were human beings. Yeah. We look back as early as 1425. We have Muslims coming from West Africa to the Caribbean to South America. If you go to the Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., you'll see a giant head that came from South America that is clearly an African phenotype, because it is evidence from the work Ivan van Sertima did, professor at Princeton. They came before Columbus. You have the presence of Africans before the unfortunate terms of slavery in Central America. You have history of Africans coming to and settling in Florida and living in peace with the native peoples, some of them even embracing the traditions of Islam. When you look at the coming of Columbus, Columbus is coming to sail west to get east because they have just declared war against the Ottoman Empire and are not able to travel through the Mediterranean as they used to do when Spain was part of the Ummah. But he enlists Africans, Moors, two men who are of Moorish descent, who are living in Europe and who are sailors who know from the experiences of Africans that you can sail deep into the Atlantic and return. And so Columbus, I don't know if they still do this, but Columbus had 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. The Nina and the Pinta were captained by Moors, and the Santa Maria was the ship that Columbus was on. They knew that they could travel deep into the Atlantic and return. And I can tell you I don't know, I mean, if you know that my father's side of the family, we're from Barbados.
I did not know that. No, you've taught me something else new.
Yeah, so about a decade ago, a ship was set adrift, a small craft was set adrift off the coast of West Africa. It was on its way to Europe, and was disabled by Coast Guard or whatever, and unfortunately was set adrift. 3 months later, it wound up off the coast of Barbados. All of the people were deceased. They were mummified from the sea spray and the sun, and forensically identified as being from Senegal. So if people ever wondered, was it possible? That ship made it, because of the currents in the ocean, made its way across the Atlantic from the coast of Senegal to Barbados, the furthest island out in the string of islands, made it on its own, uncapped, without steering, to the new, what Columbus called the New World. So we've been here a long time. But I think after, maybe according to John Hope Franklin, by the time we get to the year 1900, it is the lowest point for enslaved peoples in America. And by that time, there's very little left in terms of institutionalized Islamic practice among the Africans. Small pockets, we now know, continued to practice their faith, sometimes privately or within larger family groups. But there has been a continuous line of Muslims in America way before the time of Columbus, through the years of slavery. And as I have said to some people, from 1865 to 1965, slavery was officially ended in 1865. And in 100 years of freedom, Islam became the fastest growing religion in America. So there's something about freedom
Hmm.
that promotes faith.
Alhamdulillah. Imam, I think that's a beautiful note to conclude on. Jazakallah khairan so much for joining us today and sharing these thoughts with us as we get further into Black History Month. We appreciate your service and your wisdom, Jazakallah khairan, and we look forward, inshallah, to now working with you more closely in the coming months and years in your new capacity. And final thoughts or words for the community before we wrap up? Anything you want to share?
Let us think about the comprehensive history of America being 365 days a year. And not just like we have Ramadan. Ramadan is coming in a few months. That don't just keep the practices of Ramadan confined to that month of charity, of fasting, of prayer, of community and family engagement, and in the same way, not to let Black History Month just be, we watched a few programs. The mall had some sales, and we enjoyed some mac and cheese and fried chicken, and said to ourselves, now we have made America whole. We really need to look at making Black history, Native American history, Asian history, part of the fabric of American history.
Absolutely. And even more important now that there are some school districts trying to limit what little bit of history there already is in our school systems, makes it all the more important that we fight to keep this.
Eternal vigilance is the guardian of liberty. And so we have to, and this is why CAIR is so important, because in the civil rights movement, sometimes people think that freedom or civil rights is a set it and forget it. You elect somebody to Congress, and then we just wait around for another couple of years until election time. It really means we have to become actively engaged in our communities. Because if you don't keep your eye on freedom, I can tell you right now, you look around, you won't have it, and that is the nature that we live in. If you want to be physically fit, you got to walk, every day, and you don't get fat just eating a cake one day. You get overweight because you eat a cake every day, and if you want to have a civil society with justice and freedom, then you have to be eternally vigilant and active. And that's why I'm going to put a plug to say, if you haven't joined CAIR, and I don't care whether you're Muslim or not. I mean, I like that you're Muslim, but that join CAIR as one of the guardians of freedom and liberty in this country. Dr. King said famously that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We're reminded, they came for the Jews, and I wasn't a Jew. They came for the Germans. They came for the socialists. They came for the unionists. I wasn't one of them. And when they came for me, there was nobody left to defend. And so that eternal vigilance, and the more we know about each other, the Quran says we were created in tribes and nations, lita'arafu, that we should know each other. I'm telling you, as we get to know each other, the lies begin to fade away, and the fabric of America becomes stronger. So with that long final note, thank you, Ahmed Mitchell, for your leadership, and may Allah continue to bless you and your family and all the families who are participating with us.
Ameen. Wa yakum. Jazakallah khairan, Imam. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
And thank you all for watching today's episode of CAIR On Air. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you next week, inshallah. Please go check out our Twitter page or Facebook page to see all the latest news going on. I mean, there's been so much happening this week. I can hardly keep track of it. Our student loan reform proposal, work on this anti-Muslim hate group spying. There's so many other things we're working on. So just keep track of us on Twitter, Facebook, and you can also sign up for our email list and stay updated that way. Inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.